Welcome to Rocky Mountain Marketing. I'm your host, Katie Brinkley. Join us as we dive deep with the world's leading digital marketing experts every single Tuesday. It's all about giving you the strategies that are working right now, directly from those who are making an impact. With my 20 years of experience, I'm here to help you navigate the world of digital marketing. Whether you're looking to sharpen your skills or transform your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started on today's journey to success. If you're an entrepreneur, you should be focusing on building out the brand of your business, right? Your business is everything. You need to have the logos, the brand identity, the brand kit, the fonts. Everything is built around your business. Or is it? What happens if you decide you want to go back to the corporate world? Should you have a personal brand? Well, that is what we're going to be talking about today. And today's guest, it's pretty cool because I've seen him speak a number of times, but it wasn't until the crypto business conference that Michael Stelzner put on that he and I actually got to sit down and speak a little bit. Now, he has a really cool, successful shoe company that is really different, but that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is the importance of having that personal brand. And today's guest is Carlos Gil. And like I said, I've seen him speak a number of times, and I was actually trying to go back to see all the different events I've seen you speak at, Carlos. Like I said, the crypto business conference was one where you and I, since it was a more intimate affair, we actually got to sit down and talk some sports and get to know each other a little bit more. But I think I've seen you speak at CEX, Social Media Marketing World. You've been everywhere, and you really have built a very strong personal brand.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, last year you made the change and you went back to the corporate world. So I'm really excited for our conversation today. I think it's going to be really, really interesting for a lot of people that maybe haven't taken the jump into personal branding yet.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm really excited about the talk as well. It's one that's definitely needed, especially because of the emotions and I think the imposter syndrome even that many entrepreneurs go through when they wrestle with that just internal thought of, what are people going to think about me if I go back to work? Or on the flip side, how do I justify to this company that's looking to hire me or this company that's hired me that I also have a presence on the internet that they may or may not agree with. So I definitely think there's a relevant, timely talk. It's one that needs to be had more often. So thank you for the opportunity to allow me to share my story and my journey with you and your audience here.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've spoken on a number of stages. I've seen you take the stage a bunch. And like I said, it was at Crypto Business Conference. You have a really strong understanding in the whole digital currency, AI, Web3 world. But I guess when you were doing you've launched many different small businesses. I don't know if we want to talk. I mean, it's really cool. It's not too much of a sidebar, but I'd love it if you just told us a little bit about your shoe company that you have in Jacksonville, because it's really unique. It's probably the only one of its kind. But I'm not in the shoe culture, so I don't know. Is there more of this?
So to kind of take a step prior to that, I've worked in digital and social media marketing since 2008. Right out of the gate in 2008, I started up my first company, which was an online job board. And mind you, this was after getting laid off from the banking industry. So initially, I started my career in the banking industry in the early 2000s and 2002, to date myself. And after getting laid off in the banking industry, I dusted myself off, turned to LinkedIn. I did what a lot of folks nowadays do in 2024 and this era. And I started networking. I learned social media marketing. I was an early adopter of these different mediums, being Twitter and Facebook, and there was no Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat back then, but it was mainly LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And what I realized early on, not having a marketing budget and being in my early to mid 20s back then, is that having a personal brand became a competitive advantage. And mainly it became a competitive advantage because it provided me with visibility that allowed me to get media opportunities, speaking opportunities. Ultimately, I got my first corporate marketing job in 2012 by a supermarket chain here in Jacksonville, Florida, where I live, by the name of Winn-Dixie. So I was their first head of social media. That was my first introduction into the world of corporate marketing, running social media for a large organization. And very quickly, I also realized the pros and cons of having a personal brand. So that job that I took on with Winn-Dixie initially they hired me because I was an early adopter. I was an OG of social media, but then very quickly they're like, hey, dude, like, we don't want you to be tweeting. We don't want you to be doing this. We don't want you to be putting yourself out there. Like, oh, you have a YouTube channel with vlog content on there. Like, that feels kind of weird, right? This is going back to, 2012, 2013. And it seemed like throughout my time in corporate, as I was gravitating to platforms like Snapchat, and there was a period of time where there was Meerkat and Periscope and all these different mediums, while it benefited me because it helped me connect with people like yourself and build a following, i.e., a personal brand, at the same time, it also created friction with the companies that I used to work for at the time. That's a very long way of saying that. In 2017, I went out on my own and I thought, I'm never going to work for a major corporation again. Like, at this point, I've gotten to speaking gigs, I've written a book, I'm getting paid to do independent consulting work. Like, this is great. And then COVID happened. And
Yeah.
when COVID happened, that was a moment in time that it really forced me to hit the reset button on everything I had done up until that point. And what I will say, since we're talking about personal branding, thank goodness that I've invested almost my entire adult life at this point into building a personal brand. Because had COVID happened in 2020 and I didn't have a following or connections, I would have really been, up a creek without a paddle, so to speak. I don't know if you can curse on your show, so I'll keep it
Yeah.
PC here. But I would have really been in trouble. And I'm getting to the sneaker store story, I promise. But my brother-in-law and I, we started in 2020 an e-commerce business. And this is the first time in my life that I had to start a business from the ground up. And it's funny because I've spent so much time working for these major corporations, and I've been a part of go-to-market strategies and product launches. Obviously, as a speaker, I've presented all over the world, and I've taught at this point thousands upon thousands of marketers various strategies. But the reality is, up until this point, I had never actually started something from the ground up. And starting a business from the ground up is pretty cool because you're able to kind of pick some of the different strategies that you see have worked for other brands. And in this case, I was able to implement the strategies that I've taught marketers myself into my own business. But this is where personal branding comes into it. The business I started was called Outlaw Masks. It was a mask company. And back in May of 2020, people were sick of masks, even though we were like at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I was really cautious on how to activate my personal brand with that business because the perception, right? I didn't want people to now associate, oh, well, Carlos Gill's jumping onto this trend and Carlos Gil now is monetizing and profiting off the pandemic. So to be candid with you, like the first 3 months, I didn't even tell anyone I even owned this business. And it wasn't until we started going viral on TikTok that then I wanted to kind of swoop in like a marketing superhero and take credit for all this amazing work. We're making sales. We're going viral on TikTok. Like, hell yeah, I want people to know that I'm behind this business. Right. So it was the personal brand element of it. You deal with imposter syndrome. That's at the highest of level. What I want to say is like, no matter this brand that you fabricate, you go through periods of your career where you're like constantly second guessing, well, what are people going to think about me? Can I make this work? What if no one buys from me? Like, I went through this many years ago when I came out with my book, Then to Marketing. I'm writing the book and halfway through, I just had this breakdown of, oh my God, what if no one buys this book? And now I'm like a marketer that people know me. I have a brand and I'm writing about marketing, but what if no one buys this thing? Now I'm going to look like, again, like a phony or a fake. So the sneaker store, the hype section became an evolution of Outlaw Masks. My brother-in-law and I, one day, were sitting around thinking, well, masks aren't going to be around forever. We're starting to see our sales decline in this business. Like, what do we do next? So we went out and we rented a unit here in Jacksonville, Florida, where we live. We decided to invest into this sneaker store called the Hype Section, which offers sneakers, sports cards, and clothing. Personal branding, at least my personal brand, it's played a role into the business, but not as much as one might think, right? Like, people know me historically as being a social media marketer. They don't know me as a sneakerhead. So there's not a direct correlation between who I am professionally and who I am personally. But with that being said, where personal brand knowledge has come into fruition in this business has actually been through people like my son, who now he's 18 years old and he works in the business. He's much more in tune with today's like generation of sneakerheads and hype beasts. So I've actually trained him on how to almost be the face of our store, but also kind of staying in line with the marketing strategies that I've taught marketers throughout the years, which is centered on humanizing your brand instead of focusing on myself, who has a following that really has nothing to do with hypebeast culture, sneaker culture. Instead, we're spotlighting our customers. We're making them the faces and really the heroes of our brand.
Yeah. I think that you, like I said, I've seen you speak multiple times at different conferences, and it is neat to be able to apply the marketing knowledge that you've used for other businesses for your own business. And, the hype section, like you said, your store is kind of cool that you're now able to pass that off to your son and focus on, you still have your personal brand, but now you've been able to take that personal brand and still go back into the corporate world and get a different job. And I think that is one thing that so many people are nervous about. It's amazing to me. I'm just going to call my husband out on this, but he's scared to death of LinkedIn because he doesn't want his employer to think that he's looking for a job. Because he's not. He's happy at his job. But he will not post on LinkedIn. He doesn't post on Facebook. He's on it all the time. I see him scrolling. But he's afraid of building out of a following or having people see the stuff he's posting. And it's so important in day and age
For
to
sure.
have that personal brand. How do you really recommend people go about building a personal brand for themselves if they are in the corporate world, or if they are an entrepreneur that maybe doesn't think that they necessarily need to be building a personal brand because they should be focusing on the business?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You have to prioritize your business overall. And like the same happens in corporate America. I think so many times individuals like myself that have built a following, what we fail to realize when we go into that corporate job is that the corporation is going to hire you because of the knowledge that you bring, the brand building experience, but they're hiring you to help build their brand, not to continue to further advance yours, unless it's a situation where your personal brand brings immediate value to that company. And I'll give you an example. I started a role here in the last few months with an email marketing company by the name of Get Response. My official title of the company is US Brand Evangelist. So they essentially have brought me on board to be the face and voice, basically a spokesperson for the company here in the United States. One of the reasons why they hired me is because, again, I've shown proven expertise and the ability to build a brand of my own, again, in combination with other businesses as well, right? But I think so many times, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're an employee, you need to put, the focus of, your main objectives are to help your company grow. Unless you're a solopreneur and you are in the business of coaching and development, then at that point, hedge your bets on your personal brand. But that's one of the struggles that I had over the last couple of years, specifically with the sneaker store with Hype Section. If you look at my social content over the last couple of years up until this new role, I was posting sporadically on Instagram, posting sporadically on the social networks, because when you're in a business every single day, 7 days a week for 12 plus hours, especially working in retail where you're starting early, you're ending the day late, you're there Saturdays and Sundays, you really don't have a lot of time to post personal brand content, nor should you either, unless that personal brand content is driving sales to your business.
Yeah. If someone is listening right now and they're like, okay, well, that's the problem I have, is I am having a hard time finding the time to build out my personal brand. And I don't even know what to say, because you have the store, the hype section, and you're saying I was posting sporadically. And I love that, because I also post pretty sporadically. My Instagram is needing some very much needed TLC. But what advice would you have to somebody as they're starting to launch that personal brand side alongside of their business? And now for a quick break. You've heard me mention some of my favorite tools on Rocky Mountain Marketing in the past, and today I want to talk to you about Podmatch. Podmatch is the tool that you need if you're looking for more shows to guest on to elevate your brand authority, or if you're a podcast host yourself and you've been looking for the perfect guest, Podmatch is your solution. Podmatch matches guests and hosts through their system, and I've had a tremendous luck with them over the past 5 years. Check out Podmatch at joinpodmatch.com/Katie. All right, let's get back to the show.
Well, that's actually a really good question. So your personal brand doesn't go away just because you're building a business, right? The challenge for you is to interject that personal brand into the business. And I just want to take a step back. Everyone has a personal brand. I had this conversation recently with another dad here in my neighborhood. We're at a kid's party, and this isn't a social media influencer. He's not a marketer. This is just a dad with a normal day job. And he's at a party and he knows I know a thing or two about marketing. So he's like, hey, dude, like, I want to start up like a really cool, like, surfwear brand because his passion is surfing. So I kind of walked him through the steps of how he could leverage ChatGPT to come up with some brand name ideas, go on Shopify, create a store, use ChatGPT to write like product names, use integration with a plugin in Shopify called Printful, go on
Yeah.
Canva, create designs. And I walked him through like in 2 hours, you could have your own store. And he's like, well, that's cool. But like, how do I actually like get the word out and sell? I said, easy, dude. You work your personal brand. And he was like, personal what? I'm like, you, man, your personal brand. He's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
So I go, look, dude, you are known by people in our community. You have friends, people that know you, colleagues. That's the brand of you. His name's Chris. I'm like, that's the brand of Chris. So I guarantee you that if you put a Facebook post and you say, hey, I'm really excited to share, I just started a surfwear brand, even if the logo sucks, even if the designs are not the best, people are going to support you because of you. It's you that they want to support. Like there's another neighbor of mine here in the community that they started like this whole brand of hats. That's a really cool cause and initiative behind it to support mental health for veterans. And they're just like, they're hats, like just regular snapback hats. But this guy that I know and his wife, they absolutely crush it, right? Because there's a good cause. And again, they have a brand within the community where they live. So what I will say is the last few years of kind of being somewhat removed from the traditional social media marketing world type audience or the conferences I've spoken at throughout the years, it's really made me be that much more in tune with the needs of small business owners because I've become a small business owner myself. I'm much more integrated into my local community where I live versus the online community. And it makes me realize more and more like we all have reach, we all have access, we all have a brand. It's just a matter of packaging up your story and your cause and then leveraging that following that you have, even if it's just a handful of people or, you know, a few hundred online to get the word out. So I think, again, if you have a business of any kind, regardless of the product that you sell, you need to find ways to incorporate your backstory, your passions into that. For me, it was somewhat challenging starting up a sneaker store because there was this perception of like, this guy went from being a marketer and author and speaker to then like, he has his e-commerce mass business. Now he has a sneaker store. Like, what's going on here? Right. So that I think for me was my struggle over the last couple of years of dealing with a form of imposter syndrome, if you will, just speaking very candidly and humbly. I think a lot of people deal with that as well.
That's crazy to me that you would have imposter syndrome, but it just goes to show you that we all deal with it. Everybody, like, it
100%.
took me forever to turn on the camera for these podcast episodes. I say turn on the camera. I was still recording them here on Riverside.fm, but I wasn't using the video because I was like, oh man, I make weird faces when I talk. I do a lot with my hands, you know, so there's a lot going on here with video. And I was really embarrassed about it. I was like, what are people going to say? They're going to see what a weirdo I am. And then I was like, well, they are, I don't know. People are either going to love me or hate me, or they're going to find it endearing or annoying. And that's just who I am, though. And I have to overcome it and just stand by the fact that I am who I am. I know what I know. And I'm bringing some of the best people to come and share their wisdom here onto the podcast. So I think what we're going through with imposter syndrome is everybody feels it. What advice, other than just, you know, get over yourself, would you have to someone that says like, well, maybe what if I do share too much and my boss sees it and they don't like that? Or what if I am posting too much about X, but that's a huge, I don't love CrossFit, but let's just say I love CrossFit. And so I'm posting a bunch about CrossFit. Is that hurting my personal brand for being a social media strategist? I guess
I, I
what
think
advice would you
that
have?
I think that us marketers, we get caught up too much in the sauce. Like we drink the Kool-Aid too much about our perception of personal branding. I only say this because again, full disclosure, the last 4 years, I had to go off the grid to focus on a couple things, not just building business, but just family in general, right? We went through this pandemic.
Mhm.
I'm at home, I'm grounded, I'm getting reconnected with my spouse, getting reconnected with my kids. So for me, the last thing that was in my mind was, well, I got to keep my engagement up. I got to keep my followers up. It was, I did the opposite, right? It was like, I put my phone away. I was focused more so on other things that matter. And in the community where I live here in Northeast Florida, no one knew me as a social media marketer. And I can honestly say, for like the first time that I can remember in my adult life, it felt really good to just connect with people on a more human to human level,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, without it being about like social media cloud or following. So again, going back to imposter syndrome, I think a lot of us that work in the world of social media marketing, we kind of deal with this. So like, how do you have a regular persona? How do you become a regular human in society without having to play the role of your social media avatar? I think
Mm.
again, like I've had to explain to a lot of people in my tight circles that never met me as Carlos Gil, the marketer. Now they're like, what the hell, dude? Like, you went to go work for this company. Like, you're posting all the time. What are these speaking engagements that I see? I think it goes back to education, right? It's educating people on the power of these tools, the power of
Yeah.
connectivity. That's something that I'm a big proponent of. Every time I meet a small business owner, I always want to talk to them about marketing and let them know about the value that this brings. And I always tell them, like, it starts with you. It starts with you as the business owner. Why did you
Yeah.
start this business? What are you passionate about? What are the challenges that you have? What are the highlights? Use your platform to showcase that over the corporate channels. Like, if I look at my engagement for hype sections, very low by comparison to whenever I post about my business. Because when I post about my business, it's very personal and near and dear to me, right? We go through highs and lows,
Yeah.
especially in a small business environment. Business isn't linear. You go through these peaks of the year where business is really good, and then like it dies down. When it dies down, like you got to get really creative with how you market. And that's where the personal aspect comes into it. There's days where, I'm looking at our sales numbers and I have to go on all these Facebook groups and just as a real person start marketing the business. I don't know if that necessarily answers your question, but I think all in all, making an investment in yourself and in your personal brand is one that, if architected correctly, will carry over into your business.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse here. For people that are at this point of the episode, 23 minutes in, and they're saying, man, now I'm so confused. What is the difference between a personal brand and a business brand, Carlos? Like, they're intermingled, but now they're also different. How would you best describe the difference between your business brand and your personal brand?
Such a good question. First of all, the business of you is priceless, right? Because the business of you, being your personal brand, that carries on and extends well beyond your business. So my book that came out in 2019, then the marketing, the whole premise of it is that people relate to people and people buy from people. So I would much rather go on social media and hear from Katie and her business and who she is as a person than ever follow, no offense, I'm just gonna pick on you,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
follow like
Next Step
your
Social.
agency
Yeah.
or your social for your business, right? Because the reality is that the social for most businesses is product focused, it's service oriented, it's not really personable, it's salesy in nature, it's advertising content. Whereas people, again, buy from people and people relate to people. So I'll give you an example. Whenever I'm at a conference and I meet someone and they ask me for a business card, I tell them I don't do business cards, but I have an Instagram. And then that throws people off, right? Because they're like, oh, like, let's just connect on LinkedIn. And I'm like, yeah, we can connect on LinkedIn, but I want to follow you as a person. I don't want to follow you as a corporate professional. I want to follow you as a human being, right? And I want you to follow me as well. That way, we can unlock commonalities. You might like sports. I like sports. You might have kids.
Yeah.
I have kids, right? Like we might connect over whiskey and cigars. There's so much that you can unlock by connecting with someone on a human to human level that you can't as a business, right? The business on the flip side, the business brand is all about what makes that business the business. And oftentimes, yes, there's a people element to it. It's employees, it's customers, but it's also the products, the services, the hours of operation, right? The sales, the discounts, like this goes into it. A strategy that I've taught for years is this framework of educate, inspire, and entertain, right? So you should stay within this swim lane as a business on focus on educating your followers as much as you can. If you can teach your followers how to use your goods, products, and services, then you've won. Like in my world, though, of sneakers, the education aspect comes into a couple things: how to find the best deals, how to enter raffles, how to keep your sneakers clean. That's an educational component, but the inspiration behind what you do and how you do it, that's what makes your brand human. And that's something that you can unlock. That's also something that your customers can unlock. Like there's so many times where we've had customers come into the hype section, and either myself or my business partner or one of our employees, just a natural dialogue. We're talking to our customers, we're building rapport, even though our interactions might be no more than 5 to 10 minutes, but we're always asking like, well, why'd you come here today? What are you looking for? And a lot of times it's what's my
Oh man,
anniversary. It's
Carlos, that's such a good point. I You ask them, like, how did you what made you come in here? What are you looking for? I can't even begin to say like how important that is to ask. If you have a brick, any business,
Mhm.
ask them how they heard about you, how they found you. I mean, I get sucked into hype section, your sneaker store, not shoe. You keep saying sneakers, so I'm assuming that this is just sneaker etiquette because I'm not a sneakerhead. But I get wrapped into the rabbit hole of watching your guys' reels. I don't live in Jacksonville. I mean, like, but I know about your store. I know what you guys do. I know it's really
Right.
cool. And I'll watch like different people come in and see them buy their stuff. It's really neat. And that, but you're asking people, what brought you in here? And what do you like? How can we help? It sounds so basic, but that's how you can really learn to see if your social media is working, right?
Yeah. So ever since day one that we opened our store 2 years ago, we first of all, our whole strategy has been organic marketing. We haven't ran any Facebook or Instagram ads. We haven't bought any followers. Nothing. It's all 100% organic. And the reason for it is because the money that we make goes right back into the business in terms of inventory, right? And we're all self-funded here. So since day one that we opened, anytime someone walks through the door, we ask them very simple questions. What brings you in today? And how do you hear about us? How did you hear about us is the most important question that you can ask in a business. Again, whether you're a coffee shop or whatever sort of business that you operate, whenever someone comes to you, it's very, very important for you to ask and uncover, how did you hear about us? Because you want to know the source. Just no different than websites have tracking pixels, right? Or there's Google Analytics that they're finding how someone got to a website. That human interaction is no different. So if someone says, well, I heard about you guys through a friend, awesome. Is it someone in your neighborhood? Great. Like you're able to make those connections, oh, I saw you guys on Instagram. Did you see us because someone shared? Did you see us because you followed? Did you see us because we popped up in your Discover feed? Like these are probing questions that since day one, 2 years into this business, that we've asked every single customer that walks through the door. And it allows us to understand if we're being effective in marketing or not. Then the follow up to that is when you ask them, well, what brings you in? And this goes back to the framework of inspiration. If someone says, well, I have an anniversary or I'm celebrating something or, whatever the case is, now you're able to help tell inspiring stories. Like I can't tell you how many father and sons come into our store, right? We sell these retro Jordans. You've got guys my age are coming in with their teenage boys or elementary school boys. They want to bond. They want to have the same sneakers. So many of the stories of like, I had this shoe in the 90s and now my kid has it. Like it's just little things like that that are inspirational in nature. And every business has the opportunity to inspire. And then the last is entertain. So
Yeah.
you take a platform like TikTok, you take a platform like Instagram that has a whole catalog of trending music, trending sounds. If you want to take your content up another level, just add some music, add some trending music into it, and you'll see you can take content that's like super boring, talking head. You throw some music, now it's upbeat. There's a beat, right? It's
Yeah.
relatable. You take like the latest Drake song that you just heard in your car 5 minutes ago. Now you're seeing it on Instagram or on TikTok, and boom, you've got a banger of a
Yeah.
social media video. So again, that's the framework that helps humanize your brand. I encourage it like every small business whenever I go to I go to a lot of coffee shops or like a
Yeah.
small mom and pop cafe because I'm a small business owner myself and because I know marketing. I'll just ask them like, hey, what are you doing from a marketing standpoint? These are little kind of tips and tricks that I would suggest that you implement.
I love that. Man, Carlos, this has been such a great conversation. I can't believe our time is already up. I think that the things that you share have made it seem like it's so simple to just start doing it. The biggest thing is getting over the imposter syndrome and just getting started. If people want one, they should. If they live in Jacksonville, go check and they like sneakers, they should go check out Hype Section. If people want to get your book, where's the best place for them to do that? Tell us how to best
For
connect with
sure.
you. other than just Instagram?
So look, best way to connect with me, I would just say it's either on X or on Instagram at Carlos Gil 83. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well, Carlos Gil. I am an open book. I've been in this field of work now since 2008. I love to teach. I love to inspire. Anything that I can do to help Katie's listeners, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I do have a book. I will plug it shamelessly. It's called The End of Marketing. First edition came out in 2019. And then COVID happened. I went back to the lab, basically rewrote the book again. The second edition came out in 2021. If I can help anyone out, if you're a small business owner, if you need some tips, reach out to me. I full disclosure, I don't have a coaching program. That's not my line of work. I like to just give people free game. I believe in this kind of circle of life that we're in. If you do good for others, you teach people what you know, it'll come back and pay itself tenfold.
Amazing. 1,000,000%. Well, Carlos, thank you again so much for joining us on Rocky Mountain Marketing.
All right, Katie, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. I hope you're leaving with valuable insights and the inspiration to lead your market. If you've enjoyed our time together and found today's podcast episode useful, I have a small favor to ask of you. Please hit that subscribe button to stay updated with the latest episodes. And if you know someone who could benefit from these episodes, maybe a fellow business leader or an aspiring entrepreneur, go ahead and share this episode with them. Let's spread the knowledge and grow together. Also, I'd love to hear from you and continue the conversation beyond the podcast. Visit me at katiebrinkley.com to connect, to find more resources, or just to share your journey. And be sure to pick up your copy of my new book, The Social Shift, at katiebrinkley.com/book. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Katie Brinkley, and I can't wait to dive into more strategies and stories with you on the next episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. Let's keep on taking your marketing to new heights.